brought to you by Michelin Canada. Michelin, a better way forward.
So now that an owner-operator has decided whether or not to incorporate, in the instance where he wants to add a second truck, I guess that he's got to ask himself some serious questions as well about whether to hire that individual as an employee or whether to hire him as a independent operator.
Right, that's one of the things that we see constantly, again, going on for years in this industry, and certainly not unique to trucking. We've had even some of our clients' spouses who've worked in offices and had, sort of normal or regular jobs, if you will, where they've been asked to do this kind of thing too. Employers in Canada, of course, it's Canada, and we love taxes and we love red tape and paperwork, and that scares a lot of people off too. So an easy answer that people often go to is, well, I'll just hire the person as a driver, and he or she will look after their own taxes, and I won't have to worry about anything, and I'll just pay them, per mile or per drop, and that sort of thing. And needless to say, Revenue Canada does not favor that kind of a relationship. I mean, for them, it's a pretty easy formula of economics. It's if someone's an employee, then source remittances are being taken off every week or two. It's going into them on a regular basis. As soon as someone is a self-employed driver, well, if you're a business, then now you're allowed to make deductions. So deductions to bring your income down and make you pay less tax, which if you were an employee you wouldn't be doing. So again, Revenue Canada is going to lose. So they have written tons of guidebooks out there that talk about the topics. Some of it's getting more and more specific to trucking, because trucking's control factor of a dispatcher and a driver and an owner gets pretty complicated, and doesn't fit with the normal exercise of control rules that they would have set up. But they don't like it, and ultimately it's the employer's responsibility to make sure things are done right. And when they catch you in this kind of relationship and decide that it's been handled wrong, the employer is the one who ultimately pays the price. You're going to be paying to Revenue Canada all the money you would have paid to them anyways, and your opportunity to go back to the driver to reclaim Canada Pension Plan or unemployment insurance is very limited. And who's kidding who? They're just going to quit and leave, and you're never going to find them again. So it's very tough. Yeah,
so this is extremely important, whether you're a two-truck owner-operator, whether you're a fleet. You need to define this relationship right from the start. What does Canada Revenue Agency look at to determine whether the individual is an employee or an independent operator?
Well, one of the big things, they have a list. I believe there's a list of 7 factors, and some of the basic things are, is this person bringing their own tools to work? So in trucking, obviously the tool is the truck. If you were a carpenter or in construction, you'd have a different set of tools, more traditional view. In trucking, it's truck. So you're not bringing a truck to work with you. The truck is supplied by the person who's hired you or your potential employer. Is there a risk of loss? Is another anyone that's in business for themselves obviously can lose money, right? You've got a load you think is going to pay you well to go from A to B. You blow a tire in between. Now you didn't make any money. If you're a driver, you don't have that. You drove from A to B. You're getting paid. You're guaranteed your profit, if you will, or an income for what you've done. Exercise of control, I said, who tells who what to do is a big part of it. And another thing that falls in the way is that most self-employed businesses will have the ability to travel and do different services for different people. If you've got a driver working for you day after day, week after week, month for month, for a long period of time, and he or she never works for anybody else, then it's pretty hard to say that they are open for business and are working for multiple people. You've got a direct relationship right back to you.
It sounds like there's an awful lot of gray area there. Would you spell out the responsibilities of both parties in a contract when you hire the individual, just to keep things straight? Or what are some best practices you might have so that when Canada Revenue Agency takes a look at your operation, it's day and night, it's obvious?
Well, for sure, your employees, you should have employment contracts with them. It should be pretty obvious that you are doing all your source remittances, that kind of thing. Owner-operators, obviously, by the definition, have their own trucks. They are part of a different part of your fleet. But when you have when you have guys driving your trucks and you're not treating them as an employee, i.e. taking off remittances, you for sure better have a contract with them too. You would have a contract with your owner-operators. You should have a contract with these people as well. And I'm certainly not suggesting that's going to be the be-all and the end-all for getting through a Revenue Canada review of that kind of situation. I know another thing that falls down in that relationship too is companies or carriers or companies will hire these guys, but then they won't pay them GST or HST on what they're doing. Again, Revenue Canada's there's papers out there, they produce news bulletins telling you that in that situation, they consider a driver service or employment services of any sort that the service is being delivered to the head office. It doesn't fall under the interlining provision. It doesn't matter that the driver is driving across the border into the States or all these other things that influence that owner-operator relationship where there's no GST between a carrier and owner-operator. This is a separate relationship, and there's supposed to be GST and HST on that income. And lots of times the carriers don't think they have to pay it, and they don't. But to me, it's kind of silly, because if he's an independent business, you should be paying GST and HST on that income, so you should be paying it.
Okay, it sounds like a lot of the onus falls on the employer, whether it be an owner-operator or a truck fleet. But what about the individual owner-operator himself or herself? Do they have to be concerned about this blowing up on them if they haven't taken the proper steps to define themselves as an independent operator?
Well, yes, for sure. I guess back to the GST, the HST issue, you know, if I'm a business person and I'm out there supplying a driver service, it is up to me to collect GST and HST on my earnings. So back to the carrier. If the carrier is refusing to pay it to me, that's going to be my problem one day, not his or hers. It's mine, because I'm supposed to charge it, right? If I own a corner store and I sold you a chocolate bar, I'm supposed to charge you GST on that chocolate bar and collect it. If I don't, it's my problem. Same with the driver service. So one, they need to get a GST number, be collecting the GST, HST, remitting it to the government, obviously, properly. And then ultimately, they just need to realize that they are, in essence, they are saying that they are in business, and they need to be prepared on collecting receipts and what that's going to mean to file their tax return. They're not the same old story anymore. Now they're not paying any tax during the year. They need to be prepared for a tax bill come the end of the year. On the flip side, it's the carrier, the person that's hiring you, that's going to be in trouble with Revenue Canada for all the source remittances that weren't paid. For the CBP, unemployment insurance, etc., that's who's going to be given that bill, and it's not going to be pretty.
Any other tips on how to ensure that when Canada Revenue Agency looks at your business that there's no confusion?
Again, I'm hesitant to give tips because the relationship is different all the time. Another thing that people often will do, back to incorporating, is they'll get these independent drivers or self-employed drivers, whatever word you want to use again, and they'll make them incorporate. Again, to try to show a separation between business, between the two businesses. And probably that's a little bit of flavor in the soup. But again, Revenue Canada's got their 7 points that they look at, and it's how they score you on the whole picture of what you need to do. But the incorporating, the GST registrations, if the people could go work for different carriers now and again, move around a little bit, it all helps to make you look like you are your own business and not just hooking on someone else's ship.